Sounds like Europe. Cross-border podcasting.
Hello and welcome to Sounds like Europe, cross-border podcasting, a project brought to you by WePod. I am your host, Javi Caminero. The first co-production of the WePod project, Mare, Rabbia, which in English will be called Sea of Rage, was released this past 4th of October. As I have already mentioned in other episodes of this podcast, it is an investigation carried out by Podium podcast, the company I work for, which is part of Prisa Audio, WePod's Spanish partner, and Core Media, WePod's Italian partner. You can now listen to the first episode of Spanish version of this co-production, and you will be able to listen as well to the first episode of Mare di Rabbia, which is the Italian version, on the 11th of October. Barbate, a small town in Cádiz, in southern Spain, and Gioia Tauro, in the Italian region of Calabria, are both towns hard hit by unemployment, lack of public investment, and institutional neglect. But what mainly unites them is something that provokes silences, cancelled interviews, and unanswered phone calls. That something is drug trafficking. Mare de Rabbia is the story of two towns that decide to stand up and say enough is enough to confront drug trafficking. A story of silences, dignity, and contained rage. For the last year, I have been working on this research with my colleagues Manu Tomillo and Francesca Berardi, and I couldn't think of a better way to present this podcast to you than by having them with me in this very special episode. Manu, Francesca, hello, how are you?
Well, I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. Ciao, Francesca.
Hi, Javi. Ciao. Thanks so much.
How are you guys feeling with Sea of Rage, Mare de Rabbia, Mare di Rabbia? Are you happy? Are you nervous?
Fra, maybe you first.
Thanks, Manu. I'm both happy and nervous. I'm very happy for the amount of stories and encounters we had thanks to this project. Nervous because the stories are really complex, and we really hope to respect this complexity in the best way possible.
Yeah, for me, as Francesca said, I'm both happy, nervous, and even excited with the idea of, this is the premiere, this is the first project inside the WePod project. So it's a feeling I can't describe, actually. It's because I can't wait to listen the people who is I don't know if they already listened the first episode in the Spanish version, but I need to know how are the feelings of those people. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have many expectations either. I'm just happy to be part of the project. I'm, like Manu said, I'm excited to present the podcast to everyone who can listen to it. But I don't know, we have been working on this for a year, so it's like it's not news for us, but like the feeling is like different as where our minds are.
It's our baby,
During this past year, we have made a lot of trips. We have been talking to our sources. We have been knowing the places we are talking about in this podcast. So let's do something. Francesca, could you describe Barbate for us and for the audience? Maybe we can help you. And Manu, if you can describe Gioia Tauro, maybe Francesca can help us as well.
Okay, so Barbate, as I told you when we were there together, at first sight for me was sort of the ideal place for vacation, honestly. Very quiet village, nice sea, nice atmosphere. Then, of course, we went directly from the very first day to El Pinar, which is this neighborhood right next to the center that I just described. And this neighborhood clearly tells another story. And it's a neighborhood that it's super quiet, like you cannot see many people on streets. Those people that are on streets clearly notice you as someone wondering.
Like when you are an outsider, they notice, right?
Absolutely, exactly. You are clearly perceived as an outsider, and 3 streets in one direction you are on the main street, and there you are just another tourist. So there's this sort of invisible wall between certain Barbate and another Barbate, El Pinar. And in fact, El Pinar is kind of the center of narco trafficking in this village. Actually, the fact that in Barbate these two different realities live together and somehow manage to stay together makes Barbate even more interesting for me. More interesting than just a lovely seaside village, but yes, honestly, it wouldn't be easy at all for me as an outsider, as an Italian person, not knowing exactly how to go and to whom to speak. To enter El Pinar in the sense of entering, meaning understanding and really talking to the people. So for this reason, for example, I'm super grateful we worked together, because in only a few days, thanks to the fact that I was with you, I could really grasp something about Barbate, about narco trafficking in Andalusia, and about lives in how people live in El Pinar.
Yeah, which is like quite shocking to me is that, as you said, El Pinar is maybe 200 meters away from the city center and from the places that anyone wouldn't suspect that are so near to a place like El Pinar. So you can be walking in Barbate and without even knowing it, you can be stumbling into this hotspot for narco trafficking in a village. So I wouldn't say it's dangerous. We were walking there in daylight, but it's true that when you were in El Pinar, you could feel certain things that you certainly didn't feel when you were going by the seaside in Barbate.
It's true. It's not high, the neighborhood, right? It's just in front of you and it's there. I mean, it's not something like when you are in Gioia Tauro, for example. For me, when we were working there together, it was my first time there in Gioia Tauro and even in Calabria. And I need to admit that at the beginning it was okay. It's a quiet place, a quiet village. You know, it's Italian, southern village, amazing pasta, food, everything. People is amazing. So when you are there, it's like, okay, this is great because we are in Italy. But then you start talking with people, and if you are in Gioia Tauro, you need to see, or you need to visit this big and bigger port, you know, this harbor. This is like, it's bigger even than the port in Barcelona. So you can imagine how this place changed everything around, you know, Gioia Tauro and even other places like San Ferdinando or Polísena, or even, I don't know, the whole region. So it's like when you visit Gioia Tauro, it's like you are facing a big monster in a way. When you are in front of the port, it's like, okay, you can feel that inside there is something big, is something high, is something even evil, you know. So even if the people are amazing, for sure, it's something different between Gioia Tauro and Barbate. And if I can use a football compare, it's like
analogy?
Yeah, it's like Gioia Tauro is like playing the Champions League, and Barbate is maybe playing the local league or conference league. You know, Javi?
I think I know where you're going. But we were talking about how people from Barbate noticed us when we were there because we were clearly outsiders. I think that you will have a story in Gioia Tauro where they also noticed you. You were going to buy a newspaper. Please tell the audience, because this is like the main example of how outsiders may be perceived in these places.
Yeah, we were just walking around and trying to find a restaurant to eat. And we saw a newspaper with some photos, and we saw a newspaper with some photos and telling something like police guys take some drug dealers and from another village. I remember it was 17.
Yeah, 17 of them.
17 guys, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so as we were making this documentary, we thought, okay, maybe it's a good idea to buy this newspaper. So we entered inside of a shop to buy it, and the guy, for us, it was the first time that we were even in this area. Or he just said, "You are the journalist, right? You are working here." And it was, come on, how do you know? That's shocking me, because that things only happens if someone is looking at you or following you. And for me, it was the first time that I feel, not fear, but, this strange feeling. I don't know if, Francesca, it was the same for you.
Yes, I mean, of course, it was really weird to enter this shop and ask for a newspaper and being asked, are you the journalist? That's definitely something strange. But definitely, these are areas where you must be careful in general. So, for example, it was definitely really useful and important for us to be focusing on a story. One of the stories we were focusing on is the story of a village that has been erased while building the port, the transshipment port, and that was a sort of a really like an innocent story, like a story that didn't have any specific or clear relationship with the activity of the 'Ndrangheta, which is the powerful mafia that is rooted in that territory, and that really helped in terms of introducing ourselves and say we are journalists and we are looking for stories that have to do with Eranova. That was really helpful. Eranova is the name of this village. It wouldn't be completely different if we were there investigating drug trafficking. Probably we should have trained in a specific way, because it's not a joke.
You were there, Francesca. You have been there, reporting for this documentary many times. Did you ever feel unsafe or even watched when you were there?
I watched only once. When I was, I think Manu was with me in that situation when I was in Polistena. We were with a journalist who lived under protection. He kind of can't even drink a coffee without 2 bodyguards, and that's been for years and will be probably forever. And we were with him in a building, a super symbolic building, because it was a building built and owned in the past by this very powerful mafia family in the area, and that was then the family was most of the powerful members of the family were killed, and only one remained alive, and the building was given to the church in that village, and the church took over and is now turned it into a sort of community center. And we were in this place, and the only person that survived from that powerful mafia family, he's still living in front of this building and was outside of the building, just going back and forth and looking. That was the only time. Honestly, the fact that we that was the only time I felt I was observed. Then I'm, of course, there were moments in which I felt I had to be very careful or whatever, but in general, since we were not investigating drug trafficking at the end, in the sense that we were not looking for new stories, and we were not uncovering things that haven't been already uncovered, I think that made our trips kind of safe.
There is a word, this is a quick one, that defines quite well the communications that have helped us with the production process of this podcast. It is Itañol. If you could explain to the audience what Itañol means.
It's very easy. It's a mix between Italian and Spanish, because at the end of the day, we feel, at least me, so tired to try to explain or to speak blah blah in English with Francesca. So I think that we were in Barbate and we decided to, okay, come on, let's speak Italian, let's speak Spanish and go on, because it's easier, I think, to be honest. Maybe we can do in Itañol this podcast now.
It's the soul of the WePod project.
That's it.
Not talking in English.
It's very European. So, and I need to advise everyone who is listening us, try to mix everything because it's easier than English. So yeah, Itañol is easy, and Francesca and me, honestly, it works perfectly.
Manu, we must be honest, it was even a mix. So I was speaking in Italian to you, and you were speaking in Spanish, and we were pretending we were understanding everything and discussing it. I was understanding everything, actually, but you too, I'm sure. In fact, Manu knows Italian better than I do know Spanish, but...
No, it's not true. It's not true.
See, but he did contribution for the Italian version in Italian.
I was just reading a script. It's not. It's easy. It's easy. No, but I prefer. I feel more comfortable when I'm working with someone, Italian or Spanish. I don't know. But when you find your own language, it's the best way to cooperate, to work together and everything. So yeah, Itañol is one of the biggest present that we have in this WePod project. Yeah,
and I'm sure that a lot of listeners would understand perfectly an Itañol.
Of course.
And what are the main goals for you guys with Mar de Rabbia and Mare di Rabbia and Sea of Rage eventually? What would you like to tell the audience with this podcast?
Yeah, for me, the main goal of this project is trying to explain for a Spanish audience, but even for an Italian or, I don't know, foreigners, that this is not a problem just from the south of Europe, from the south of Spain or the south of Italy. This is a problem around the world. We are trying to explain how the system, how the capitalism at the end of the day is destroying culture, a society of our countries, because those people who are working for drug trafficking or drug dealers or mafia or whatever, if you talk with them, they explain to you that there is no options sometimes. So I feel that Mare di Rabbia or Mar de Rabbia or Sea of Rage are not a narco story, are a real life story, and that's why I think it's very important to listen this kind of stories. Yeah.
Exactly. For me, it's the same, because especially when it comes to mafia, to Italian mafia, and narco-traffic. There are a lot of stereotypes. There's even, let's say, like a genre in terms of TV series and in general narration, and often it is always seen from the perspective of the traffickers. It's always provide a certain perspective of the story that really doesn't include the lives of common people living together with this kind of issue and finding their way of living with it, or deciding to leave. But the other thing is what you said in the beginning. It's not just something that has to do with people living in Gioia Tauro or Barbate. The degree of separation that we all have with a ton of cocaine that arrives in Gioia Tauro are really less than we can think. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal for me, to show it, to make it clear.
Once this documentary is fully published, you both will continue working on other co-productions of the WePod project. I will be here in Sounds Like Europe, in my little corner. I will be waiting for you. But in which podcast will people listen to you again?
Well, maybe I can start because the second production that will be published, it's the project that I'm working on it. So it will be published with Ser Podcast here in Spain and Bull Media in Belgium and France, and it's a story about truck drivers around Europe, because there is a lack of truck drivers in Europe. And maybe you think that this is not important, but maybe sometimes you wake up and you are waiting for a box that the other day you bought something and doesn't come to your home because of this lack of truck drivers. So it's very, very important to try to explain this system, those conditions, salaries, everything. So we try to put you who are listening now inside of a truck with a truck driver. I will say to you that you will enjoy it, and it's a nice and good story about Europe, truck drivers and economics, and so that's the next project. And I'm working also in the large co-production, but maybe Francesca is the right person to explain better this story.
Yes, on the large co-production we are working on how the radical right, in the far right in Europe, is somehow trying to control women's bodies in different ways, eroding the right to abortion, but also promoting more the idea of having more kids. We are really looking at this issue from several perspectives, personal stories, follow the money. There's a investigative component in this project. It's very interesting, very broad, challenging, but also something that I think is definitely needed in general. We are really trying to answer to like a question that it's at the center of the political debate now, and has been for years, which is how the right to abortion is able to swing so many votes still, decades after demonstration that granted this right in so many countries. We are still discussing it, and it is still so relevant when it comes to elections. So that's in general the large co-production.
I think these are both like two really interesting for sure projects. I'm looking forward to listening to you in those. And I hope you do have a great job you have done here with Sea of Raids, because that will also mean that the podcasts are amazing. Before we finish this episode, I want to ask you a couple of questions about your listening habits. Let's start with Francesca. What's the most important podcast in Italy right now, Francesca?
So probably the podcast that I enjoyed the most in the last weeks is a podcast produced by Cora called In Viaggio Non Pregare, and in which writer Paolo Giordano embark and goes with a emergency boat, with a boat run by Emergency, the organization, to save lives in the Mediterranean Sea. And I really liked the way it was conceived. It reminds me a little the old-fashioned radio documentaries, which is a genre that I love, and this mix of this sort of script by this very good writer and the emotions and the events that happens along this journey makes it a precious work.
Manu.
Well, it's very, very hard to say the most important or the better or whatever, because now everything is always changing, and you can find some podcasts every week. So let me talk about an old one. For me, El Gran Apagón, this fiction about a kind of dystopic future, or even maybe not so dystopic. But for me, this was the very best first one, big podcast in Spain that for me changed everything.
And just to finish the interview, guys, let's start with Francesca again. When's your favorite moment to listen to podcasts?
Actually, I listen to podcasts in two ways, either walking or running. But I prefer walking because I can listen better. I also listen to podcasts just lying on my bed at night. I'm not one of these people who listen to podcasts while washing dishes or whatever, because I really do it as reading a book. So I'm usually still while I listen. So night before sleeping or while walking, but by myself.
Yeah, for me, maybe because I'm working with audio and podcasts every day. I'm not this kind of guys who said I'm always listening podcasts is amazing, blah blah blah. So even because I know the whole process to do a podcast, I choose a good moment to listen a podcast that I want to listen. I mean, I prefer after work, calm inside my house with good headphones and try to be calm in a sofa with maybe a beer, maybe a whiskey, and
like a ritual.
Yeah, it's my moment. So maybe it's after work or weekend or holidays. But honestly, I'm not listening podcast all day long as a hobby. I mean, so I prefer just to choose one day or 2 days to listen everything in the same time, but with a ritual. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you both for the interview. It's been a pleasure. I think we are running a bit long. Manu looks at the time thinking about everything we are going to have to edit.
But it's okay. It was a pleasure, as always, talk with Francesca, because I one of the biggest thing also is after this project, I can say that I have a new friend with Francesca. So thank you, Francesca, and grazie mille perché è stato un piacere
anche per
me.
me. Anche per me, Manu, anche tu sei
Grazie.
un mio amico.
I'm not so fluent in Italiano, so I'll tell you, Francesca, in English. Thank you for your work this year. It's been a pleasure sharing this investigation with you.
Thanks to you, Javi.
And Manu Tomillo, muchas gracias, Manu. I don't think you can imagine how much I have learned from you during this process and just by doing this podcast. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your work. And to everyone listening to this interview, I've been your host, Javi Caminero. Please listen to Mare de Rabbia, now available in all platforms, and to Mare di Rabbia, it will be available soon. And let us know what you think about this investigation. I will be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of Sounds Like Europe. Bye-bye.
Sounds Like Europe, Cross-Border Podcasting is a WePod podcast funded by the Creative Europe programme. Hosted and written by Javi Caminero, sound design by Manu Tomillo, coordinator Alexander Damiano Ricci, executive producer Anna Ribera.